There's like something slightly wrong about the proportions of the hand on the girl on the right, and it's bothering me. People, please. First of all, you were briefed about this, so you should already know what your duties are. I'm sure all of you are well qualified to perform as expected, but let's get to what this project is really about. Does anyone want to make a guess? Since I'm here... Oh, Francois, not Francis, or whatever I called him earlier. Since I'm here, it can only mean something with military applications. Good guess, Ms. Thomas. Does it have anything to do with PTSD, perchance? Not quite. How about you, Miss Otomo? I have no idea. Just get to the point, please. Let me sum it up in one sentence. Intelligence, trainable bioweapons as low-cost alternative to mechanized weaponry in developing countries. Alright, that doesn't sound like a call from the Ethics Committee at all. Interesting, very interesting. Now this conundrum we find ourselves in might actually work out in our favor. Since we are outside any jurisdiction now, that means we can do whatever we want during this little project of ours. Okay, so Heinz is definitely the mad scientist. Just think about the opportunities. You intend to utilize human DNA in this project, don't you? I thought they would do that anyway and pay off whichever country we could find ourselves in. Yeah, but now we won't even have to do that anymore. It'll take a while to repair all the damage and re-establish communications with the company. Until then, we're kind of stuck here. Who says we wait until then? I don't know. I just don't think they'd like it if we went ahead with the project before they even knew what happened to us. Sometimes it's better to ask for forgiveness than permission. Is that an Anna thing? That sounds like an Anna thing. That's how you end up in jail. What else are you supposed to do while we're here? If worse comes to worse, we can just destroy the results. That also sounds like an Anna thing. Heck, if this works out, we're the only ones who have a portal to the past like this. It could be only the first of many incredible opportunities. Think about all the animals we could use, the raw materials and plants, even the atmosphere. I can already smell the rare gases here that we could harvest. I think that's just the ventilation system being wonky. I haven't had time to adjust it yet. You're only thinking about the company, but what about us? Already thinking about mutiny? I think that would be a bad idea. I thought our salary already contained an eternal loyalty and silence bonus. That's the thing with greed. People always crave more, regardless of how much they already have. All this discussion is pointless. I'm the team lead, and I decide we do this. As long as you take responsibility if there are any troubles. I know what the company wants, and I say this will make them more than just happy. In a few years, you'll thank me for it, trust me. If you say so. If we're going to make bioweapons, what animals would we have them based on if we didn't end up here? Would we have based them on if we didn't end up here? The great thing is that we don't have to choose. We already have technology that does all that work for us. We just need to provide the samples, and based on our criteria, we get a customized genome that fits our purposes best as possible. And you want to give them human intelligence. Why wouldn't we give them as much intelligence as we can? If they can think too advanced, too abstract, don't you think they might start to have independent thoughts? How are you going to control them? By asking nicely? That's what Ms. Thomas and Mr. Bolderin are here for. Bordelon, whatever I said. Bordelon. With the right training, it shouldn't be an issue. Besides, you know that most human soldiers are obedient, right? I suppose so. How do you know this is going to work with dinosaur DNA as well? We will find out soon enough. Should we? That is not a question we ask at this company. I've realized that. Have you ever seen Jurassic Park? No. If you want to see Jurassic Park, you only need to open the door. You'll find that all your concerns are unfounded, and I'll show you why. But first, let me talk about abilities. Now that we have a whole world of potential samples, we should be able to do even better. We should be able to find even better alternatives to what we have been planning. What abilities would those be? Flight, armor, fire, to name a few. I'm like 35% sure there weren't any dinosaurs that breathe fire, just throwing that out there. All at once, that sounds an awful lot like dragons. Dragons are scary, aren't they? This could be even a psychological this could even be a psychological component. To be fair, getting all those into the same species could be complicated. You think you can do something nature couldn't. That's why you're here. What animal is the fire ability based on? The bombardier beetle. Okay, so not a dinosaur, but I have heard of those little guys. And I will take it at their word that they were around in Mesozoic times. We're going to make the mechanism safer and easier to control, though. Alright, so we're going to combine animal strength with higher cognitive abilities, but how are you going to prevent others from stealing the genome? Backyard breeders could be a problem. A very good question. There are a number of safeguards we are going to introduce to prevent any authorized copying of our product. Ah yes, biological DRM. Everyone's favorite. Firstly, there is the genome itself. Raising the creatures from infancy to a point where they will become usable for their purposes will take some time. Since we're going to do this ourselves, we have a unique blend of hormones to make them reach this stage fairly quickly. Making them grow up naturally is something that will take so much time and resources as to become unviable by anyone who would want to go that route. With us, they can be combat ready in a few months instead of years. Secondly, all creatures will be equipped with a brain implant. Not only does this give them a variety of advantages, but it's another safeguard against copying as well. Without the chip, they'll become either uncontrollable or die. That sounds like another call from the Ethics Committee. So even if the genome is stolen, that wouldn't be worth using without the chip. That's genius. I know. Couldn't someone just hack or reverse engineer the chip and manufacture it themselves? I doubt it. They're intended to be sold in low technology areas. You realize that's like the biggest hotbed for, like, intellectual property piracy ever, right? Heinz? You've been on the internet for more than 2 seconds before, right? Alright, whatever. Even if they can reverse engineer the chip, they don't have the facilities to mass manufacture them. Otherwise, they'd just be using combat robots like everyone else. Although, to be fair, I guess this is after the solar flare thing, so... it's not quite as easy as just emailing the data to someone in a country with manufacturing facilities and whatever, and getting it back in an unmarked package. So you want to modify their behavior with this technology? Being dependent on a chip sounds dangerous. What if it fails? Don't worry about that. Lastly, there's the training. Training any living being, no matter human or not, takes time and money. Not only do we have an automated training program, but we can also use the implant to accelerate this process. What about direct transference of knowledge into the creature's brains via the implant? That technology is still in its infancy. If you want to get this product out and into the market as soon as possible, we'll need a solution that works right now. Fair enough. It'll give the user full control as well. The creatures will be able to learn from experience, but undesirable memories can be wiped easily. Sounds like you have it all figured out already. The company has been working on this project for a long time, and now it's up to us to make it reach its natural conclusion. What would that be? Our product is the creature, the chip, and the training, all in one complete package. Take away just one of these components and the product won't work as intended. We deliver them to be used in combat from the moment they arrive at the customer's doorstep. I still think we should wait before you rush into using animals that we hardly know anything about. Your opinion has been noted, Mr. Tomo, but it won't carry much weight. Despite my objections, the experiments run under Heinz Foreman went full steam ahead. Using the genetic material of many prehistoric reptiles, a variety of species were designed. We started our tests with one that enjoyed the most combat-related improvements, measuring the viability and effects of our safeguards. Soon, the first proto-dragons were born. One was to be raised as naturally as possible, another was to receive the hormones for accelerated growth, while a third one was to be trained via the automated learning program. The last one was to receive all of the safeguards at once. They were identical clones. Caring for them was a task that ultimately fell on all of us, in addition to our usual duties. For now, the artificial domestication process on the genome made sure they would be controllable and obedient even without the implant or training. We were already being recognized as packmates and parents by them. While I knew about the added intelligence, I soon had to realize just how far they had gone. It was when the first of them started talking. At that moment, I knew they would never be free, never be happy. They would only ever live a life of servitude or be used as weapons. Good job, Heinz. They were given sapience only to face for a future of enslavement. I thought the company would expertly maneuver around the legal system to make it possible. You thought they would, future tense? You think they already haven't? Come on, Izumi. As I worked my way up the ranks within the company, I had become increasingly disillusioned by the many despicable acts and projects I had witnessed. But now I was at a breaking point, ready to blow the whistle on everything I knew about them. While the experiments continued, they relied on me to repair the portal and to return to our time, and I could only buy so much time while I figured out how to proceed. I knew that as soon as contact, and probably contracts, were re-established, I wouldn't be able to stop the project anymore. It was then that I realized I had to do something. You think they wouldn't need to send someone to take care of this anymore? It should all be automated by now. True, we have a robot that can perform any kind of surgery, so they don't need to see a doctor anymore. Why not have a robot that can take care of other robots? Because then I'd be the one to create that robot, and if I did, I'd be out of a job. By the way, I think the heater in my room is broken. Would you mind taking a look at it later? I could think of a few ways to turn up the heat. A tempting offer that I will unfortunately have to decline, Mr. Mr. Bordelon. I hate these early meetings. Anyone else want a cup of coffee? A Tomo, perhaps? You know I don't drink coffee. 3 cups then, just as usual. I don't even know why they gave us 4. I like how none of them look like they haven't slept for about 3 months. Here you go. Why even coffee? It's not as if we couldn't just take a pill to get the same effect. Ah, but then you wouldn't get this lovely taste, Mr. Thomas. Lovely taste? I think you're drinking the wrong coffee. Can we just get this over with? Of course, of course. Who wants to present the results first? That's a nobody. Alright, I suppose it has to be me. Again. You know what? You should be glad that everything is recorded and transcribed automatically now. In my days, we actually had to write these reports ourselves. Hail to our machine overlords. Can we just get this over with? Of course, Bordelon. Suddenly, Heinz started coughing. When his fit didn't stop after a few seconds, all of us stood up and Francois went over to him. Heinz keeled over, his eyes widening in an unfocused stare. He stopped moving before a bit of foam started appearing at his mouth. He needs his injector. There should be one in the drawer over there. Quickly, I went over to the drawer, grabbed something, and ran over to Sybil. That's not it, you stupid. Mutiny! Before she could finish her sentence, I drove the scalpel into her neck. Ow. I involuntarily reach up to, like, scratch my neck when I read that. She collapsed immediately as blood gushed out of the wounds, staining the floor red. She screamed and Francois turned around to see me still holding the scalpel while the bleeding Sybil lay on the ground next to me. I attempted to stab him, but he grabbed my arm and wrestled the scalpel from me, which fell to the floor with an audible clang. He then wrapped his hands around my neck and started to choke me. I fell over backwards and he followed, his hands never leaving my neck in the process. He was now kneeling above me, and I found myself becoming weaker by the second. I made peace with the idea that I was going to die. I didn't know what would happen afterwards, to the dragons, to Earth, to everyone, but at least I could say that I tried. You're gonna be saved by a dragon, aren't you? When I came to, it was from seeing something dripping onto my face before Francois was dragged away from me. Slowly, my vision returned. I looked up to see one of the dragons. There we go. I looked up to see one of the dragons approaching me before it started to lick my face with its blood-stained muzzle. How come everyone's wearing a different uniform? The other design species were made, and after making some adjustments to the learning program, it taught them what I wanted to know. I founded the first village, and they grew up quickly knowing only me as their leader. By the time I left, they didn't even need me anymore. They had become completely self-sufficient. And the rest is history. So the end, you gave them even more than life. You gave them freedom. She sat on the ground, panting heavily. There should be a shovel over there. Take it and dig. I did as she asked and began digging a hole in the area she indicated. I wonder what would await me when the shovel hit something hard and I dug around it, unearthing a vaguely round shape. More shapes followed as I continued. I eventually realized that I was looking at a body. I lifted it out of the shallow grave before turning it over. It was me. Why? How? You have to understand, there was no other way. Each time you traveled back in time, I had to kill you. Having multiple instances of yourself would have been troublesome. I can see how. We only needed one of you. One to go through the same scenario over and over again so that we could learn what to do differently. So this is your graveyard then, full of other instances of me. Not just you, there are also others, and myself. Others? Yes, in some timelines, they sent someone else instead of you. She was not a nice person. Why did they send someone else? They told me I was the best candidate and I was going to offer my PDA for the trade. Because in those timelines, you died before you even had the chance to arrive here. Murdered for that very PDA you gave the dragons. How many are there? How many did you bury? How many times have we done this now? I lost track a long time ago. How I wish I could forget it all. You only did what you had to. Hey stupid, do you remember anything about the first time you came here? Let me think. You mean when Anna jumped in front of me and sacrificed herself so that I could survive and do what I set out to do? Then you don't. You only remember the newer timelines. I think it's better this way. I've killed you so many times, and sometimes you did the same to me. Or rather, a different me. You don't know what it was like when I still had to try and figure everything out. You only remember timelines I have sufficiently tempered with. What are you trying to tell me? The first few times, I was just watching you. I could see your intentions were pure and that you were filled with determination. But without my help, you always failed. Everything that happened, from all the murders to the conclusion in the lab, it was all necessary to arrive here. I also needed to show you what kind of a person Reza was. You wouldn't have believed me otherwise. Could I have stopped him earlier and saved those he killed? I don't know. If I died before I could reveal myself to you, circumstances could have become unfixable. How many times do you think we tried before we have even the remote possibility to succeed? I know what you did. I've done it too, remember? If you didn't step up to the position back then, we probably would still have to figure out a few things. Sometimes, I don't quite know myself why I had to do the things you told me to. If we didn't lure Maverick to the portal during the first day, the confrontation that set off this whole chain of events wouldn't have even happened. Wouldn't even happen. I thought that wasn't what I said. Your meeting with Reza had to be interrupted, otherwise he would have told you about this plan that night. And from the ensuing talk, there would have been only two options. Either you would have joined him to save humanity while leaving this world to die, or you would have opposed him, in which case he did not hesitate to shoot you then and there. We had to do a lot of things to make this happen, didn't we? All of those other timelines just to succeed into this one. The others might have failed, but we still learned something from every little mistake we made. That's how we could arrive here. What would you do now? With the generator gone, we wouldn't be able to stop the comet. Maybe we don't need to. What are you talking about? Back home, there are plenty of empty buildings. If the dragons took the generators and the technology with them, we could revive all the infrastructure, the hospitals, the schools, the everything. They could make humanity an offer they wouldn't be able to refuse. That's not the usual context that that quote is said in, but okay. You want to relocate them. Do you even have any idea how many dragons live here? Sure, there are many. They may have never settled on another continent, but we are still talking about millions here. And you say that, and that's probably mostly because there's only one continent, because they're all lumped together. Just saying. Even if they won't accept them, they'll still have a safe passage to set up a new city. I don't think it'll come to that, though. There's still plenty of dead infrastructure and room to fill. It could be the very first city of its kind with dragons and humans living together. Besides, if we can't stop this comet, this is about as good as we're going to get. I know you won't settle for anything less. If this is the only way, then I won't object to this outcome. The thought of humans and dragons living together is one that I think bears a lot of potential. Maybe from the ashes of both civilizations, something new and greater can be created. You don't realize the weight that's been on my shoulders from all the things I had to do to make this work. Now that we are here, I don't think I can continue this existence with these memories in my mind. Now that we have saved them, I think I can definitely rest. Maybe I have to apologize. You're right to want to save humanity too, when both me and Reza only cared for one civilization. You never settled for one. You wanted to save everyone. I guess I was so blinded by wanting to preserve my creation that I refused to see anything else. I'm glad you saw this through to the end. You never stopped believing. If it wasn't for you, I never could have done this. And now it's on you to make this work, a city of dragons and humans. I'll try to do my best. I believe you will. Then I can die happily, knowing they will be safe and can look to a brighter future. No, you can't just die now. How am I supposed to do this without you? Don't be sad for me. I wouldn't have it any other way. So we're getting to the point where I like a lot of the artwork that I've been seeing, but also I don't want to use it in a video thumbnail because spoilers. Although, to be fair, the story's been out for like 7 years, since like 2017 or so, so maybe no one will mind. I don't know. I like this picture. I also like the one with the white dragon in the flashback exposition dump. Besides, I'm sure you'll do a fine job. How can you be sure I will? Because if you don't, I'll hold you responsible for what happens to them, through time and space if necessary. How can you make jokes at a time like this? You've only seen what I had to do, not what I wanted to do. If we met in a different time, a different place, things could have been very different. I've killed you so many times and put you through so much anguish to make this all happen. I only long for your forgiveness and understanding, that you can look at what we've achieved now and tell me that it was worth it. It was. Thank you. She closed her eyes as a single tear ran down her face. I moved to wipe it from her, and could already feel the warmth draining from Izumi's body. She was dead. Alright, so we've got some loose ends to tie up. That can wait for the next video because this story really never ends. My name is Dragonite. This has been Angels with Scaly Wings. In the next part, we're going to be, I don't even know what we're going to be doing in the next part because for like 3 videos now I've said we're going to be finishing things up and that hasn't happened yet. We'll find out. I will see you all later.